About 12 years ago, I wrote a short story about a vampire. I was just dabbling, and I named it Eating Dirt. This year, I decided to resurrect that story and upload it to my YouTube channel, to help usher in Halloween, the Halloween season. Well, I've since written a prequel to Eating Dirt. There is a backstory to this, and it is entitled Dark Reverie. And here it is. We three first met at a costume ball. Melinda portrayed a beautiful but terrifying Medusa, a mythological woman with serpents for hair and the power to turn onlookers to stone, while her husband Darnley dressed as Count Dracula. I, of course, went as myself. That is, a vampire pretending to be human, pretending to be a vampire. Melinda, wanting to chat, wanting to slow dance, used the pretext of trying to find a suitable beau for her widowed sister-in-law, Carolyn, as a cover. There was a familiarity that went beyond her bold behavior. There was something about her that captivated me, with her teasing questions about immortality. All the while, I exercised restraint since I'd just fed. How will it feel when you turn me, my lord? Will I remain forever young? Will my husband find out? I will always find out, her husband interrupted in a very bad Transylvania accent. Then, turning to me, we invite you to cross our threshold. Do come for dinner next week and meet the fair widow Caroline. We'll make it a foursome. Who knows what we will find out about each other, he continued. During the days and nights leading up to the affair, I dreamed and thirsted and fretted over Darnley and Melinda's frivolous play acting. Then, turning up with flowers and wine and wearing smart casual coordinates, I compelled the gargoyle door knocker to rise and fall as if it were a living thing. Never could I have imagined a repeat of last week's masquerade. Medusa and Count Dracula answered the door. Well, so much for gargoyles keeping evil out, I chuckled aloud. In full costume, Darnley uttered the lame cliche, I want to drink your blood. Melinda caught me in the ribs with her elbow and whispered, just humor him. Then she chimed in with, do come in and meet my lovely sister-in-law, Witch Caroline. Although an invitation to cross someone's threshold never failed to delight me, I was underdressed for the occasion and had misgivings about wasting the evening on such an eccentric lot. It could spell more trouble than it's worth. Referring to my attire, I do apologize for any misunderstanding on my part, but Melinda cut me off as well as any excuse I might have used to take my leave. Don't worry, we'll find something for you to wear in Darnley's closet, she said, serving me up to her husband. The sweet witch Carolyn can wait a little bit longer to meet you. Well, there was nothing normal about his oversized walk-in closet. An automated conveyor belt made for quick selections of costumes and accessories, most of them monstrous in nature. I thought, he's crazy as a bat. Then I muttered, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Darnley caught the epithet and encouraged, please be a good sport. He chose a vampire costume for me, similar to his own. Come, we will be rivals, he said, rolling the letter R. How could I allow myself to be so manipulated? Something nagged at me. It was the familiarity of this lot. Intrigued, I decided to go along for the ride. Witch Caroline came equipped with a cauldron, of course. Have some of my famed pork jowls and apple stew, she said, with an exaggerated wink, which I really wasn't sure what to make of. I pushed food around my plate to make it look half-eaten and talked up a storm. A hollowed-out pumpkin served as an ice bucket, overflowing with vapors of dry ice. Looked like Martha Stewart had visited to help them decorate. But it had its appeal. I drank too much wine and argued over every bit of folklore Darnley took to reciting, everything from werewolves and warlocks to vampires. He was trying to show off, but I bettered him with my repertoire of impersonations and first-hand accounts. Over dessert, Darnley pulled out a board game called Dark Arts, claiming it was brand new. I swear, the annoying bastard had memorized all of the game card questions and the answers in advance. Carolyn drew a card and directed a question at Darnley. Which of the following repel or kill a vampire? A silver cross, vervain, garlic, a mirror, holy water, or a wooden stake? All of the above, Darnley yelled out like an overexcited kid. Well, I just guffawed, making no effort to hide my disdain. I gotta tell you, bud, crosses only work if you believe. I mean, really believe. Wooden stakes, well, they're awkward to carry around and, mirrors break easily. As for garlic, you play the fool, he interrupted. Maybe I've got a secret. Would be a better game. Then, I've got a secret, all right. Half to myself. A secret recipe, he trailed off. Melinda and Caroline ignored Darnley's know-it-all behavior, and whenever it was my turn to answer questions, Melinda would say, how could any human being know such dark things? Her flirtations turned into bold, intense gazes, while Carolyn snatched glimpses from the corner of her lashes. By 10 o'clock, the night was still young, but I'd had enough. I had grown bored from competing with Darnley, always trying to set him straight on accurate details and accounts. Rising from my chair, I said, I think I'll change back into my own duds now, with a flourishing bow and hint of sarcasm. Thanks for your enlightening hospitality. Carolyn, not wanting the evening to end, said, "Well, why not pop over to Cubby's Tavern with me? They're starting to decorate for Halloween. It'll be lots of fun. We needn't bother to change." Turning to Melinda, "He can pick up his clothes later, can't he?" Melinda nodded, an eager yes. Carolyn hit the powder room as Melinda and I sashayed arm in arm towards the front hall. Our efforts to ignore Darnley for his overbearing rudeness all evening resulted in angry footsteps following close on ours. "Trying to escape, are you? How many ways are there to kill a vampire?" he screamed. Melinda just looked embarrassed. She glared and shook her head to stop his idiotic tirade. If she could have brought to life the legend of Medusa, she would have turned Darnley to stone right there and then. To mock him, I said, "Let's see, at least 7, most of which are found in bad movies and board games." His demeanor changed from agitated idiot to grinning lunatic. "Viscount, I think you underestimate me," he whispered close to my ear, then stalked off. As Melinda reached out in a gesture of farewell, the edge of her snake-like copper bracelet caught on my watch band in a freaky way and scraped the inside of my wrist. It drew blood. She was quick to put her lips on my wrist, licking and sucking. Her warmth sent a dizzying shiver across my shoulder blades and up my neck. Holding my gaze with a promise in hers, she whispered, "Tomorrow night at, say, 8. My frenzied thoughts and inclination to press my mouth to Melinda's neck were hushed. Caroline rejoined us with, "Ready to go?" Her quick glance from Melinda and then back to me was unsettling. We needed to be more careful. Walking down the driveway, Caroline with her witchy hat and me dressed in Dracula's best, we sauntered towards her car and then she hesitated. I raised an eyebrow. She apologized for the outrageous evening. "No harm done," I said. "The pork jowls and apple stew, 'twas delicious." Leaning towards her, I raised my hand in a tender gesture to sweep the vibrant mane of red hair from her neck. In the same instant, I detected movement at the front of the house, a shiver of curtains at the window. Yes, a shiver of curtains. I withdrew. Darnley had been watching us. "No, you didn't. You hardly touched it," Carolyn accused, bringing my focus back to her. "What?" I mumbled. "I think you didn't like my stew at all," she challenged. Then, in a softer voice, "Look, Darnley's wild ravings have unsettled me. Perhaps we should just call it a night. I'm embarrassed by it all, and besides, Melinda seems to have designs on you. I'm not really interested in being part of some charade," she rambled on. And then she rambled on some more. "Nothing's been the same since my husband Harry died. My brother-in-law, Darnley, had a total breakdown and was hospitalized after finding my Harry dead on an isolated stretch of our local golf course. The police said it was a suicide because of the gash on his wrist, but Darnley refused to believe it. He raved on about night stalkers and that Harry had bitten off more than he could chew. Funny, Yes, funny the things people reveal to strangers. Then something flickered in my brain. An incident on the golf course that had sent me underground for quite some time. A woman pursuing Harry, and Harry pursuing immortality through a shady kiss in the dark came to mind. Yes, it was to have been my dark kiss that would have turned him. He'd teased and courted me to sink my elongated ivories deep into his jugular to draw blood. And then offer him a taste of my own to let him feel the hotness of transition to the immortal world. Carolyn's Harry? Was this the same Harry destined to become my immortal minion? Look, I'm really sorry about your husband and Darnley's distress, I said to Carolyn, walking her to her car. Our hands touched, and a tremor passed between us. She withdrew a little too quickly. She recognized me for what I really was, and I her. Nevertheless, we went through the motions of polite promises to meet again without the claptrap of Darnley and Melinda's eccentricities. And then she drove off. Oh, I thought to myself, that Harry had been a devil, courting me as a route to immortality, and all the while deceiving his wife, being deceptive with both Carolyn and me. That night on the golf course, I spied on Harry and a young woman whose face was shrouded in shadows. She sobbed over Harry's quest for immortality and pleaded for his fidelity. She wanted him to remain with her, and only her, in a human world and not in darkness. She thought too highly of herself, I thought to myself. In anger and fright, she had run off, denouncing her own sanity for following Harry to the golf course and for being afraid of witnessing Harry and I in the kiss of death and rebirth. After she fled, I killed Harry. Oh, yes, I killed Harry in a fit of jealousy, so intent in draining him. Yeah, so intent on draining him. I hadn't noticed that someone else lurked in the shadows. A skull-crushing whack almost severed my head. Without lingering to see who or what delivered the blow, I just somehow managed to flee a good distance before digging my way into the earth to hide my maimed form and to seek regeneration in the healing darkness. Sometime later, several years later, eyes dry and irritated and hunger great, I clawed my way through the chilled earth at sundown and pursued a wild deer. Looking for other signs of life, my gaze fell on a lacy invitation ensnared in a nearby bush. There was no envelope or indication of the intended recipient. It was an invitation to a costume ball, and that's how we three first met. Melinda, Darnley, and I. Melinda's parting words following our costume dinner party, tomorrow night at 8, held an irresistible promise that Darnley would be out of sight and out of mind. Well, no one greeted me at the front door. So I let myself in. Having fed earlier that evening, I was vibrant and strong, fearless and ready for anything, or so I thought. Floating up the staircase, I entered a half-open bedroom door. The warm welcome I'd expected was instead frigid. There stood Darnley. A crystal goblet full of sensuous dark blood stood on a night table. Pointing, he said, "For you, my dark lord." It took a moment to register. She wore her best lace, with head cocked to one side, arms outstretched across her ornate conjugal bed. Both wrists had been slashed. Crimson silk sheets could not belie the horror of what Darnley had done. Acting out the jealous husband, he drained Melinda of all life. "That bitch shouldn't have flirted with death," he spat. "You and your dark arts. She's always wanted something beyond my giving." I crossed the room and played along, snatching the goblet, gulping the sweet memory of Melinda, greedy for her taste. "Are you that naive to think there'll be no payback?" I countered. My mind raced with the thought of her throbbing jugular and what might have been. The insane bastard had robbed me of her writhing transition to immortality. Darnley's toothy grin emerged through the darkness of it all. I stretched my own lips, exposing my fangs for effect. I sensed little rivulets of Melinda's blood forming on my chin and dripping onto my linen shirt, some hitting the floor with muted patters. Libations for Melinda, I sighed. Darnley was only a few feet away, but when I stepped towards him, it felt more like a mile. Something was not quite right. I stumbled and crashed to the floor. My voice slowed to a deep, barely audible pitch, like the wrong speed on an old-fashioned gramophone. My dead weight, however, did not deter Darnley from tying a length of heavy rope round my ankles and dragging me down the stairs. The thumping sound attacked my brain like a vicious echo from the past. He hauled me out of an adjoining garage door and hoisted me atop the roof of his car, covering and securing me with tarpon cables. Perhaps a precautionary measure for fear I'd break free had he stowed me inside the car. Well, as he sped off, I could hear him conversing the whole time as though I were in the passenger seat. "Did you think the invitation to the costume ball was just a coincidence? Huh. I didn't know how you managed to disappear so quickly the night I nailed you on the back of the skull with my axe. Figured you'd survive, so every year on the anniversary of Harry's death, I hosted a costume ball at the golf course and scattered invitations to the wind, knowing one invitation would eventually find you. After all, I knew you'd need a reintroduction to society at some point, one you'd find irresistible." He drove to a remote area, took a spade from the trunk of his car, and began digging. Then he called over his shoulder, "Did you think I'd let you win over both Harry and Melinda with the lure of immortality? Or worse yet, tolerate their cheating on me with one another? You've all underestimated me," he screamed. Pulling me from the roof of his car, he lugged my body over to the grave he had prepared. The physical effort made him curse. I heard his pounding heart as he rolled me into the ground with his foot. Harry's affair with Melinda got him what he deserved, he said in a malicious and breathy voice. Whack went the shovel across my shoulders. "You saved me the trouble of killing him, and now I've returned the favor." Whack again. "I've spared you the trouble of sucking the life out of Melinda." The wicked poundings continued as layers of earth rained down upon my persecuted form. His mutterings continued. "Just a few drops of my recipe. A repellent, yes. Ha! But just think how lethal if a concentrated overdose is ingested by a dark lord." After sniggering over how clever he was at concocting a bloody Melinda by adding a paralyzing number of drops of garlic essence to her blood, he finally shut up. Well, almost. I heard him weep. Yes, I thought, I downed the drink too quickly without detecting garlic over the metallic scent of blood. Indeed, I'd fallen prey to an ancient trick that transformed my blood to crystals and my limbs to a rigor mortis state. Well, bravo to mere mortals who dare to challenge the darkness, and woe to those who believe that victory is more than just a temporary thing. Darnley's an idiot to think that ingested garlic is lethal. It deteriorates over time and the effects wear off. He would have known that had he been more attentive, a more attentive game host. And actually, not just a more attentive game host, but more thorough in his research. He just didn't know exactly where to look. In my mind's eye, I pictured Darnley standing over my grave, staring at the ground. His one-sided conversation started up again. And what of sweet Caroline? Darnley reflected. Merely a bit player in this charade, eh? Oh, how innocent and sweet her role. Now we can wed without the baggage of divorce. Caroline has always been the one for me, but she was already married to my brother Harry. I tried to get over her by marrying Melinda, but she turned out to be an adulterous bitch. I could do nothing but listen to his ravings. Caroline doesn't know I planned Melinda's death, and the police will think it a suicide. Now, my dark lord, with you and Melinda out of the way, Caroline will welcome my advances and consolation. She'll be mine. I'd heard his retreating footsteps scuff the ground. A car motor roared to life. Tires bit the dust, while night sounds pierced the stillness. Nighthawks calling and insects crawling. Once again, I lie in bondage for an age, eating dirt at any attempt to open my mouth to scream bloody murder. Darnley, what a buffoon. I'll rise again and rise again to seek out those who have wronged me. And what of sweet witch Caroline, a white witch, or one who dabbles in the dark arts? Who knows? Is she really an innocent in all of this? This is my story for the telling, and my conscious remains will seep through the earth, bringing nightmares to those who underestimated my immortal reach and lust for warmth and living things until I rise again.